Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and get started on our stitching. You'll see that for what we're gonna do today, we are going to use color 8, which is this one right here. But if you look at your instructions, I'm not sure if yours is printed incorrectly like mine is, but mine said 6, and it's actually thread 8 when you look at what it's using. If it was using 6, it'd be this yellow, and we know that that yellow is in other places in the flowers. So we are going to start with number 8. We're going to use the stem stitch that you just watched the video for. She showed you how to do the techniques. I'm going to show you how to get the needle set up and ready to go, and how to use the instruction sheet for everything that you're going to do. So if you pull off color 8, the best way to do that is just find that loop and pull the loop, and it'll release all of your threads. You can put the card with all the other threads away for now. Then you're gonna see that as you unravel, you have really, really long lengths of this thread. I'm going to cut mine in half. You can cut yours in half if you'd like. You don't have to, but I strongly recommend it because the longer your thread is when you're sewing by hand, the more likely you are to get knots. So you definitely want to try to decrease the amount of knots you get and the amount of times you have to stop, and maybe just use your fingers to knot it. But what I'm going to do is just fold it in half, make sure it's folded in half, and I am going to then take and use my trimming scissors and snip those. So now I have 4 lengths of this thread. I'm only going to need one at a time, so I can put the other 3 off to the side. And the next thing that you need to look at is where it says 3 strands. That doesn't mean 3 full strands. It means that we are actually going to take and separate these little threads that are here. And there's 6 total. So with every piece of embroidery floss, there's 6 strands per thread. We are going to take and separate these 6 into 2 sections. So it may take you a second to get 3 and 3. But once you do, you just take them and you can start pulling. I like to hold both ends with one hand and then take my other hand and use my index finger to separate, so that they completely come unraveled. Again, you can take the 3 that you aren't going to use and put them off to the side. And the 3 that you are, you're going to use those to thread the end of your needle. I like to maybe lick my fingers, lick the end of the thread. Make sure your hands are clean. And then I will go ahead and thread my needle. This can be complicated and hard sometimes, and sometimes it'll go great. Of course, it's going to be difficult. So what I like to do then sometimes is just try the other end. It's like threading your needle on your sewing machine. So I got all 3 through. I'm not going to take them all the way to the end. I'm only going to take it so that I have a nice little chain right here. So now I have a tail and I have nothing at the other end. I do like to make knots at the end. I do a double knot. With 3 strands, a double knot will have plenty of space. It'll take up plenty of space so that it won't go through your fabric. All right, when looking at your guide, this will tell you where you're going to have the stem stitch in the color that you're using. So with this color 8, you'll see that there's the mason jar lid, and then these 2 design details on the mason jar. I recommend starting, especially this is our very first stitch. I'm going to start on just this really small little design detail. That way, if I don't like it, I can pull it out. It'll be a nice way to just kind of get used to what you're doing. So once you know the stitch you're doing and where it's placed, you don't really need your instruction manual anymore. Now you're just going to have your embroidery hoop, and you're going to have your needle and thread. You're going to start at one end. So I'm going to start right there with your thread. And if you remember from the video, she made her first stitch a little bit longer than what she normally would be doing. And you can kind of decide, this is your project, how big you want each of your stitches to be. I'm going to say that this is maybe like a double the length that I would want this to be. So I'm going to go ahead and go through and put my thread on one side. And again, on your stem stitch, you're going to leave this little loop. before you completely finish it, you're gonna go in between those 2 stitches. So I'm going to come up and through, and now it will tighten and cover up my spot. Okay, then I'm going to, again, go down my normal stitch length. And she did recommend in the video trying to always make sure that your loop is on the same side. So whichever side you like it on, I'm going to do it this way. Then you come back up in that space where you just left before. And you're going to pull that tight. Okay, you're going to continue doing this all the way until the end. So I'm going to go down. Keep my loop, and then come back up where I just went down. When you get to your last stitch, what you're gonna do then is finish with your thread down. I just finished like one last half stitch into that last piece. Then I'm gonna flip this over, and you can make your knot. If you look at the back, you can kind of see if you've been pretty consistent with your stitches. These look pretty good. And it's going to get better as you continue doing this more and more. How I like to knot it is I just take and I wrap a circle, and then I pull and put my finger right at the knot, kind of like if you're wrapping a present, if you like know how to do the bows. And you wrap it, pull it 2 times. I like the double knot. Then you can take and use your trimming scissors, trim that off, and there is step 1. Okay, you're going to continue now doing the same thing with the upper part of the jar all the way around, and then this other detail. You are welcome to leave it in the hoop if you want. Just throw it in your bag, or you can loosen your hoop and separate the 2 pieces. I like to do that sometimes just so that I don't get a permanent ring around the outside because it's not exactly where I would want to put it. So you can just kind of lay it down. And this is what it will look like until we do day 2, where we work on a couple more of our stitches. Great work.